I never thought I'd be the one sitting across from a sex coach at 38 years old, married for 12 years, wondering why my wife and I barely touched anymore. But there I was, desperate for answers. James stares directly into the camera, his eyes reflecting a vulnerability that immediately connects with viewers. What Sarah told me that day changed everything, not just my sex life, but how I understood intimacy itself. If you're struggling like I was, stick around. This might be the most important video you watch this year. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want more raw, honest conversations about the things nobody talks about but everyone experiences. The soft morning light filtered through the blinds as James Morgan rolled away from his wife, Claire. Another night of sleeping with their backs to each other, the invisible wall between them growing thicker. He checked his phone, 5:47 a.m. Too early to get up, too late to fall back asleep. His mind drifted to the last time they'd made love. Was it 2 months ago? 3? The memory felt distant, like something from another life. Claire stirred beside him, her breathing changing rhythm. For a moment, he considered reaching out, placing his hand on her hip, initiating something. But the fear of rejection froze him in place. What if she sighed that familiar sigh of reluctance? What if she made an excuse about being tired? What if she just lay there, waiting for it to be over? The possibilities paralyzed him, and the moment passed. By the time their alarm went off at 6:30, James had already showered and dressed. Downstairs, he prepared coffee for both of them, a ritual that had survived even as their physical intimacy had withered. Claire appeared in the kitchen doorway, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing the oversized t-shirt she slept in. "Morning," she said, accepting the mug he offered. "Morning." He searched for something else to say, something meaningful. "Sleep okay?" "Fine." She took a sip, her eyes on her phone. "You were restless again. Sorry if I woke you." "It's fine." The conversation died there, as it often did. James felt the familiar ache in his chest, loneliness, even while standing 3 feet from the woman he'd once couldn't keep his hands off of. They moved around each other in the kitchen with the practice choreography of long-term cohabitation, careful not to touch, careful not to disrupt the fragile peace of their morning routine. At work, James found himself staring at his computer screen, the numbers and charts blurring before his eyes. As a financial analyst, his job required focus and precision, but lately, his mind wandered constantly. In the break room, his colleague Marcus was showing something on his phone to 2 other guys, all of them chuckling. "Check this out, James," Marcus called, waving him over. James glanced at the screen, a porn clip, women with exaggerated features performing for the camera. He forced a smile and a nod, the expected male response, but felt nothing. How many nights had he turned to similar videos after Claire fell asleep, seeking some release from the tension building inside him? It never satisfied, only left him feeling more hollow. "You okay, man?" Marcus asked, noticing James's distraction. "Yeah, just swamped with the Henderson account." "Tell me about it." "Karen's been on my case all week about the quarterly projections." The conversation shifted to work complaints, and James felt relief wash over him. He didn't want to talk about sex, not with these guys who treated it like a conquest, a game with winners and losers. What would they think if they knew the truth, that he, a healthy 38-year-old man, was in a virtually sexless marriage? That evening, scrolling through his phone while Claire watched a reality show, James saw an ad, "Reclaim Your Intimate Life, Sarah Chen, Certified Sex and Relationship Coach." Something about the woman's confident smile, the testimonials beneath her photo, made him pause. Without overthinking it, he clicked the link and booked a consultation for the following week. He didn't tell Claire. What would he say? "Hey, I'm seeing a sex coach because our bedroom has become a desert?" The thought made his stomach clench. Instead, he told her he had a dentist appointment during his lunch break next Wednesday. Sarah Chen's office surprised him. He'd expected something clinical, or worse, something tacky with suggestive artwork. Instead, it was warm and professional, plants in the corners, comfortable seating, soft lighting. Sarah herself was nothing like the sultry therapist he'd half feared, half hoped for. In her early 40s, she wore a simple blouse and slacks, her manner direct but kind. "So, James," she said after they'd settled in, "tell me what brings you here today." The question was simple, but James found himself struggling to form words. "How did you tell a stranger about the most intimate failure in your life?" "Take your time," Sarah said, noticing his discomfort. "This is difficult for everyone at first. My wife and I." He began, then stopped. Started again. "Claire and I have been married for 12 years. We used to have a great sex life, but now..." He shook his head. "It's been months since we've been intimate. And even before that, it was infrequent, mechanical. Like we were just going through the motions." Sarah nodded, her expression neutral but attentive. "And how does that make you feel?" "Rejected. Frustrated. Lonely." The words came easier now. "Sometimes I wonder if she's still attracted to me at all. If anyone would be." "These feelings are completely normal," Sarah assured him. "Before we go further, I want to ask, have you discussed this with Claire?" James shifted in his seat. "Not really. I mean, I've tried to initiate things, and when she turns me down, I might make a comment about how long it's been. But an actual conversation? No." "Why do you think that is?" "I'm afraid of what she'll say. That she doesn't want me anymore. That she's been faking it all these years. That there's something wrong with me." He hadn't realized how deep these fears ran until he spoke them aloud. Sarah leaned forward slightly. "James, I want to share something with you. The issues you're describing, they're incredibly common. In fact, they're epidemic in long-term relationships today. And while each couple's situation is unique, there are 3 factors I see repeatedly destroying intimate connections: pornography, chronic stress, and eroded confidence." James felt a jolt of recognition. All 3 hit home. "Let's start with pornography. Many people think it's harmless entertainment, but the research tells a different story. Regular consumption rewires your brain's reward system, creating unrealistic expectations and diminishing your response to real-world intimacy." James thought about the videos he watched late at night, how different they were from the gentle, sometimes awkward reality of sex with Claire in their early years. "Then there's stress," Sarah continued. "We're living in an age of unprecedented pressure, work demands, financial concerns, social media comparison, global anxieties. The human body isn't designed to maintain arousal under chronic stress. It's biologically impossible." "Claire's been dealing with her mother's health issues," James admitted. "And my company's been through 2 rounds of layoffs this year. We're both constantly exhausted. And finally, confidence. Sexual desire thrives on feeling desirable and secure. When rejection becomes a pattern, when communication breaks down, when you stop seeing yourself as worthy of desire, intimacy doesn't stand a chance." The session continued, with Sarah asking thoughtful questions about James and Claire's history, their communication patterns, their individual stressors. By the end of the hour, James felt something he hadn't experienced in months: hope. "I'd like to give you some homework," Sarah said as their time drew to a close. "First, I want you to take a 2-week break from all pornography and masturbation." James felt his face flush. "Is that really necessary?" "It's about resetting your brain's reward pathways. Give your body a chance to recalibrate its response to real-world stimuli." She smiled reassuringly. "Second, I want you to initiate a non-sexual touch ritual with Claire. Maybe a 5-minute shoulder massage before bed, or holding hands while you watch TV. The goal isn't sex, it's reconnecting physically without pressure. And third, have an honest conversation with Claire. Not about sex specifically, but about your relationship. Ask her how she's feeling, what she needs from you, what might help her feel more connected. And really listen to her answers. James nodded, though the thought of such vulnerability made his palms sweat. Would you be open to bringing Claire to our next session? Sarah asked. The question caught him off guard. I don't know if she'd come. Think about it. The work is always more effective when both partners are involved. On the drive back to work, James's mind raced. Could it really be that simple? Not simple to fix, but simple to understand? The thought that their problems might have identifiable causes, that they weren't just falling out of love or fundamentally incompatible, filled him with a cautious optimism. That night, after dinner, James took a deep breath and reached for Claire's hand as they sat on the couch. Can we talk? He asked. Claire looked surprised but nodded, muting the television. I've been thinking a lot about us lately, he began, his heart pounding. About how disconnected we've become. And I miss you, Claire. Not just physically, but emotionally. I miss us. Claire's eyes widened, then filled with tears. I miss us too, she whispered. I thought maybe you'd stopped caring. Never, James said firmly. I've just been lost, I guess. Not knowing how to bridge the gap that's grown between us. They talked for hours that night, really talked, in a way they hadn't for years. Claire shared how her mother's declining health had consumed her emotional energy, how the pressure of possibly having to care for her full-time loomed over everything. James admitted his fears about the layoffs at work, his sense of failure as their sex life dwindled, his retreat into the false comfort of pornography. I didn't know, Claire said softly. About the porn, I mean. Though I should have guessed. I'm sorry, James said, feeling ashamed. It became a substitute for the connection I wasn't feeling with you. But it only made things worse. We both stopped trying, Claire acknowledged. It was easier to accept the distance than risk rejection. When James mentioned Sarah, the sex coach, he expected Claire to be angry that he'd sought help without telling her. Instead, she looked thoughtful. Do you think it would help? Going together? I think it might, James said, relief washing over him. She seems to really understand what couples go through. The next morning, for the first time in months, they woke up on the same side of the bed, Claire's head resting on James's chest. They hadn't made love, that would take more time, more healing, but the simple act of holding each other through the night felt like a revolution. Their first joint session with Sarah was awkward at first. Claire sat stiffly beside James, answering Sarah's questions politely but briefly. But as the hour progressed, as Sarah created a safe space for both of them to express their fears and desires, Claire began to open up. I stopped feeling desirable, she admitted. Between work stress and my mom's illness, I gained weight, stopped taking care of myself. And James stopped looking at me the way he used to. Because I thought you didn't want me to, James said, surprised. Every time I tried to initiate something, you seemed so uninterested. I was exhausted, Claire explained. And afraid I'd disappoint you. Sex started to feel like one more thing I was failing at. Sarah nodded. This is such a common cycle. Stress leads to decreased desire, which leads to avoidance, which leads to more stress about the relationship itself. Add in unrealistic expectations from media and pornography, diminished self-confidence, and poor communication, it's a perfect storm. Over the next several weeks, James and Claire worked with Sarah on rebuilding their intimate connection. They learned techniques for managing stress, practiced mindful touch exercises, and established new patterns of communication about their needs and boundaries. James maintained his pornography fast, finding that his response to Claire's touch grew stronger as his brain readjusted to real-world stimuli. It wasn't a linear journey. There were setbacks, nights when one of them was too tired, days when old patterns of distance crept back in. But they now had tools to recognize what was happening and redirect their course. 3 months after James's first appointment with Sarah, he and Claire made love for the first time in nearly a year. It wasn't the acrobatic performance James had once measured success by, influenced by years of pornography consumption. It was tender, sometimes awkward, punctuated by laughter and whispered reassurances. And it was real, a genuine connection between two people who were learning to see and desire each other again. The most important thing I learned, James says to the camera, his expression earnest, is that great sex isn't about performance or frequency. It's about presence. Being fully there with your partner, vulnerable and authentic. Sarah taught us that intimacy dies in silence and thrives in honest communication. The camera pulls back to reveal Claire sitting beside him, her hand in his. We're not perfect, Claire adds. We still have stressful days, times when we feel disconnected. But now we recognize the warning signs and know how to find our way back to each other. James nods. If you're watching this and feeling that same loneliness, that same disconnect from your partner, know that it doesn't have to be permanent. The patterns that kill intimacy can be unlearned. New patterns can be created. It takes courage, Claire says. Courage to look at yourself honestly, to be vulnerable with your partner, to admit what's not working and commit to change. But it's worth it, James finishes, squeezing Claire's hand. Every uncomfortable conversation, every moment of vulnerability, it's all worth it to rediscover the person you fell in love with, and to be truly seen by them again. The screen fades to a gentle montage of couples of various ages and backgrounds, holding hands, laughing together, exchanging loving glances, the simple, profound intimacy that exists beyond the bedroom, the foundation upon which all meaningful sexual connection is built. If this story resonated with you, James's voice continues over the images, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. We'll be sharing more conversations about rebuilding intimacy, managing stress, and creating the relationship you truly desire. Remember, you're not alone in this struggle, and the path back to connection is closer than you think. The final shot returns to James and Claire, sitting closer now, the ease between them palpable. Thank you for listening to our story, Claire says softly. Your journey won't look exactly like ours, but we hope it gives you the courage to take that first step. The step that changes everything, James adds, as the screen fades to black.